Mike Brown, the former FEMA director.
Joining us here is the former FEMA director.
History, I think, was very unkind to you, my friend. Very unkind.
Mr. Brown, thanks for being with us.
This is Michael Brown Unplugged.
Well, good morning, everybody, and I hope everybody had a great 4th of July holiday. And I thought we'd just get started out with this episode of Michael Brown Unplugged with one more thing that I think we ought to be worried about. Everything now is in the superlative, and everything is about politics, and everything is the worst that we've ever seen it. Now we have to worry about wasps. And no, I'm not talking about white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. I'm talking about wasps.
Mr. Ray, just the photographs of these super nests give me the heebie-jeebies. What do you think when you see them?
Well, I'm fascinated because of a couple of things. One is, until 2006, I'd never seen one. The second is, why is it occurring? And that's something we hope to answer with some of the nests this year. The third thing is just the incredible that you can almost feel the energy around these nests. There are wasps working on the paper. There are wasps flying in and out with prey. You say busy as a bee. Well, this is busy as a wasp. They are incredible.
How many of these super nests do you have in Alabama so far this year?
I am fairly confident I've got about 19. I'm going to be heading out tomorrow to look at some more and, in fact, verify that it is a nest of yellow jackets.
Can you describe what these super nests look like?
Well, it almost looks like there is paper slowly oozing out of the surface that their nest is behind. So many of them are on embankments along roadsides, and it looks like there's a river of paper has flowed down the site. On a home, it looks like this paper is just oozing out from the eaves. It's very beautiful. I mean, it has texture and color, and then the yellow jackets all over it.
And you described the energy around it. How many wasps are living inside these nests?
A small colony of these super nests in late June would have at least 15,000 wasps. It's an older report. 15,000. And the larger nests undoubtedly have many, many more.
Well, they're wasps. They've been around forever. I'm just fascinated by the fact that every time we turn around, there's something else that we're supposed to be scared of. So if there are all of these wasps, and by the way, we're going to hear this guy talking again in just a second, but if we have all of these wasps and they're so bad and they're so scary, how many injuries are there?
The only record number I could come up with was there's a study done in South Carolina. A nest was examined, and they found over 250,000 yellow jackets.
You mentioned the year 2006, when there were, in that year, 90 of these super nests. In 2006, 3 people were seriously injured by wasp stings. How dangerous are these nests?
3 people. 250,000 by one count. 300 plus million Americans in the United States of America. And going back to 2006, we had 3 people injured. This is what I mean by I don't think we can wrap our head around just how stupid we've become as a country. Everywhere you turn, it's we had the earthquakes in California. And what do? They find somebody that moved to California like 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe he's lived there for 10 years. But that he's never experienced an earthquake before, but this was his first hurricane. Why do I keep saying hurricane? This is the first earthquake that he's experienced, and it's the worst he's ever seen in his lifetime. Well, if you've never experienced or been through any other earthquake, wouldn't that indeed be the worst one that you have ever experienced in your lifetime?
These nests are actually not very dangerous unless you disturb them. So all 3 people who were injured were seriously disturbing a nest. So
they were seriously disturbing a nest, as to kind of lackadaisically, messing around with the nest. Do we have to teach people that, oh, look, there's a big honkin' super nest of yellow jackets? I know. Let's go over in our Bermuda shorts and T-shirts, and let's take a baseball bat and see what we can get going.
An elderly lady in a nearby county had no idea what it was, and she went out with a rake and started pulling it off the side of her house, and she ended up being hospitalized. And there was a gentleman in Coosa County who went out and bought what they call wasp and hornet spray, and he went through 26 cans, and he would spray the nest, and he would try to pull it down with a rake, and more would come flying out, sting him. He'd spray some more, rake some more, get stung some more, and
did you catch that? Let me back. I don't mean to laugh at these people, but you bought 26 cans of wasp spray. You sprayed it, you knocked it down, you got stung, you went back, you sprayed it more, you knocked it down some more, you kept getting stung, you kept going back for more. At what point do you realize, hey, maybe just maybe, I need to call a pest control expert? Does it ever cross your mind?
What they call wasp and hornet spray, and he went through 26 cans, and he would spray the nest, and he would try to pull it down with a rake, and more would come flying out, sting him. He'd spray some more, rake some more, get stung some more, and he got a large number of stings, and he also was in a lot of pain, so he ingested some alcohol to try to feel better. And
oh, don't we all? The pain. Just give me some alcohol. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing, but I've taken 26 cans of wasp insecticide, and I've taken a rake, I've taken a broom or whatever, and I've been trying to knock it down. I keep getting stung. I keep going back for more. So I guess I'll just go in and have some tequila. That's what I'll do.
Either he passed out from the wasp stings or the alcohol or both, but he fell and broke the orbit, the bone that circles your eye.
Oh, my.
I don't know. A nominee for the Darwin Awards? Just curious.
And this is going to sound like an enormous number, but the little nest in the ground here in Alabama that's about the size of a volleyball, in about August will start producing queens, and they will produce about 4,000 queens. And if one of those queens...
Oh, just go ahead and insert your own joke. Just insert your own joke. I don't care. I'm not going to do it. Don't rely on me to insert your own joke here.
Through the winter, that colony's been successful. There's tremendous attrition. What we think is happening now is it never gets cold enough to kill the workers. It's
climate change.
Warm enough for there to be a food source for them to feed on through the winter. And the other thing that's happening is rather than having a single queen, they start the spring with maybe 1,000 to 4,000 workers that made it through the winter, and they'll start with 35 to 150 queens. And each one of those queens can produce over her lifetime 20,000 eggs. If you do the math, they're going to make a huge colony with that many queens and that many workers to provide for them.
Sounds like you've got your work cut out for you this summer.
I do, but I am terribly impressed with what these things are doing. How can they build something this quickly? I've never been stung while just examining a nest. I've told people before I've stood under a very large nest and gave a 15-minute TV interview, and the wasp didn't care if I was there or not. They never bothered me.
I don't know. It's kind of like the guy that stands out on the Atlantic coast or the Gulf Coast during a hurricane, the news reporter who's barely able to stand up. I keep thinking, someday, somewhere, somehow, and I hope it doesn't happen, but I know the odds are that eventually it's going to happen. Somebody's going to be on a beach reporting about a hurricane and how it's dangerous to be outside, and some 2x4 is going to go flying by and knock the guy out or kill him or doing something. And the same's true with this guy worried about the wasps. Good grief. Wasps. I think about just wasps. Well, again, insert your own joke. There was some sad news over the weekend. I was really disappointed to wake up on Sunday morning, and CBS Sunday Morning was reporting that Mad Magazine, Alfred E. Newman, What Me Worry, is going to shutter.
And iconic Mad Magazine will leave newsstands this fall, ending its 67-year-long run. The satirical magazine, with its gap-toothed mascot, Alfred E. Newman, influenced generations of readers with its subversive humor. At its peak in the early 1970s, it attracted more than 2 million subscribers, but its circulation declined in recent years.
And you know why? Because it's politically incorrect. I grew up on Mad Magazine. Maybe that's why I'm the way I am. Mad Magazine. Oh, you'll be missed. And, of course, if you haven't heard, the women's soccer team won the 4th World Cup title. Fox News was doing a report on it. And if you want proof that we have politicized every single thing in our society, this is it. Fox News viewers got an earful when the crowd at a sports bar in France began chanting F Trump live on the air as the network covered reaction to the women's soccer team's World Cup victory. It was Sunday afternoon, just after the team's 2-0 victory over the Netherlands, when Fox anchor Arthur Neville tossed to Greg Palcott at a sports bar in Lyon, France, for reactions from American expats who had watched the game there. It kind of went like this.
Guess what? History has just been made, Arthel. We are here in a sports bar in Lyon, France. Here, listen to it. That we are in a sports bar. We were going to be outside. We were going to be looking at a screen with the football team there. But in fact, that game was canceled by the officials because they were worried about security measures. So the American...
And I know it's hard to make out. Fortunately, I don't have to bleep it because you can't really make it out. But they're screaming at the top of their voices, F Trump, F Trump, F Trump. And then about a minute as the Fox News guy is interviewing patrons, this young man and woman shouted into his microphone, Democrats, USA Democrats, and get that racist out of the White House. It is mind-bogglingly stupid to me why that. I don't care whether it's women's soccer. I don't care if it's the NFL. I don't care if it's Major League Baseball. I don't care what it is. I'm sick of politics infusing every single thing that we do. I frankly don't give a rat's ass about the U.S. women's soccer team. I just don't care about soccer. I just don't care. But you know what makes me actually learn to dislike soccer? Is when an organization, and I get that the U.S. soccer team is a private organization, FIFA, all of that, it's a private organization. They get paid whatever the marketplace is going to pay them. So have at it, go knock yourselves out, do whatever you can. But if you're going to be representing the USA, can't you show a little respect? And actually to those people in the bar, you're expats. You're in a sports bar in Lyon, France. What does Trump... Seriously, what does Trump have to do with women's soccer? Now the question's going to arise, and you know what's going to happen. Trump's going to invite the soccer team to visit the White House. And Rapone or Rapillon or whatever her stupid name is, she's going to refuse to go, and maybe some of the others will refuse to go. And you know what? I'm just fine with that. You know what else I'm just fine with? I'm actually just fine if the president doesn't even invite them to the White House. Because as long as we're going to politicize everything, why don't we start dividing things up? Okay, here's politics over here. Here's sports. Here's the culture. Culture and politics is kind of hard to divide up. But why do we have to infuse every? It's like fusion restaurants. You got an Asian Mexican fusion restaurant. No, I want Mexican food, or I want Asian food. I don't want any fusion food. I want one or the other. Why do we have to fuse everything with politics? So congratulations to the team, but guess what? I don't care. In the New York Times over the weekend, too, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, I can believe she did this because she somehow has to control the Democrats. She has to position themselves if they intend to keep the House in 2020, let alone take back the White House. She's going to have to keep these socialist, Marxist, this far-left group that's running for president under control. Well, she lobbed a grenade at the new left quartet of freshman members of Congress, Rashida Tlaib, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, and Ayanna Pressley. And it generated a whole bunch of buzz and provoked a Twitter dragging by Ocasio-Cortez on Saturday night. Well, yesterday on ABC's Martha Raddatz on ABC's This Week, she asked Congressman Tlaib about it, and she, too, spared no kind words or caveats as she blasted the speaker in response. Now, you have to remember, these four women voted against the bill that was to provide additional funding, to provide additional food, clothing, medicine, housing, whatever they needed at the southern border. These women vote, the same women that referred to them as concentration camps, refused to give additional money. Kudos. Well, I'll say partial kudos to Martha Raddatz for asking the question. But I take away those kudos for then letting her filibuster her answer.
York Times this morning, the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, said that you and the three other progressives made yourself irrelevant to the process by voting against the bill. All these people have their public whatever and their Twitter world, she said, but they didn't have any following. They're 4 people, and that's how many votes they got.
You know, people like us, people like me and Ayanna Alhan and Alexandria, we're reflective of our nation in many ways, but many of us didn't run to be first of anything. But more people like us have been missing in the halls of Congress. More people like us, people of color, have been missing in the chamber because most of us, and Ayanna Pressley says it more beautifully, people that are closest to the pain need to be at the table making these decisions. Guess what? We know what it feels like to be dehumanized. We know what it feels like to be brown and black in this country.
Then why didn't you vote for additional funding to help the humanitarian crisis? Because you see, the color of your skin, I don't care what color your skin is, Congressman Tlaib or AOC or Presley or Ilhan Omar, I don't give a rat's ass what the color of your skin is. If you're going to go to the southern border and you're going to accuse us of, I think it was AOC over the weekend, maybe one of them, I forget who it was. No, it was Ilhan Omar. It was Ilhan Omar who actually said on national television that America, that our government is, quote, starving children at the border. Irresponsible. There is zero evidence of that whatsoever. And all the Border Patrol and CBP has asked for is additional money so they can build additional detention facilities, additional housing facilities, bring in additional food, medical supply, additional transportation costs, all of those things. And these 4 Marxists who do have a seat at the table, they are one of 435 members of the U.S. House of Representatives. They have a seat at the table. They have 1 vote like all 435 members of that House do. And they elected not to vote for the additional funding. Well, you know what? Screw you.
And I'll tell you right now, we're not going to stand by and sit idly by and allow brown and dark-skinned children to be ripped away from their parents.
Then why didn't you give additional money for it?
Be dehumanized, to feel like...
What would you say to Nancy Pelosi? What would you say directly to Nancy Pelosi?
Honor the fact that we are there, that 650,000 people are represented by each and every single one of us, that there is some sort of...
Wait a minute. Recognize that we are there and we represent 650,000 people each. Are you talking about members in your district? Or are you talking about somehow you represent 650,000 illegal aliens? I don't know. I mean, now it's just a word salad. It's just nothing but a word salad. But the thing that has me irritated is they had the opportunity to provide additional funding. And you know why Nancy Pelosi wanted to do that? Because she knows that it's a humanitarian crisis. And she knows that they're on the wrong side of history if they don't do something to try to solve it other than just try to keep blaming Trump for all of the ills going on down there. Fix the immigration system, you yahoos. Fix it.
I think in many ways, something special about having a refugee, having a woman that, you know, has experienced alone what incarceration has done to her family, right? All of us have these experiences that I think have been missing in the halls of Congress. Honor that, respect that, put us at the table. Let's come up with a solution together. But there is a better approach. They passed something out of the House. Still, I will not support anything that is broken and that dehumanizes people. But guess what? Mitch McConnell sent you back something that was worse. And I'll tell you right now, I mean, all you can do is focus on him. Uplift the women, especially the women of color within your caucus that are out there, because I'll tell you, more people like us, more people like me that come out to vote, we win. All of us win. And
okay, I'm going to have to stop you there for time.
It is very disappointing that the speaker would ever try to diminish our voices in so many ways.
How did she diminish their voices? She brought the bill to a vote. It overwhelmingly passed the House. It went to the Senate. It now goes through the normal legislative process. The House and the Senate now have to reconcile their differences. They're on the path to providing additional money, and these 4 yahoos voted against it. I don't care how they try to spin it. They have a seat at the table. They know exactly what they could do. Now, I truly do not understand. Well, I do understand. Let me just put it bluntly. These 4 women are playing politics with the lives of those poor, pathetic people who are trying to escape their S-hole countries and come to this country. And we have an obligation to stop that. And they had a chance to help pay for additional medical care and housing and detention and everything else they need, and those 4 yahoos voted against it. So you know what? Screw them. Just screw them. To show you just how kind of upside down and inside out the world's become, liberals in the media and in academia are always scouring the country in search of some form of discrimination wherever they can find it. And all they can come up with is imaginary microaggressions. Now, they've been looking in the wrong places. White people only discriminate against themselves. If you want to find discrimination, look to places like something called the Afro Future Fest in Detroit. This is according to Sky News. The organizers of the Afro Future Fest, set for August 3rd and 4th, are charging lower rates for tickets bought by people of color than for non-people of color. Early bird tickets for POC, people of color, were $10 and $20 for non-POC. Later date pricing offers people of color tickets for $20 and non-people of color tickets for $40. Now, some POC tickets, people of color tickets, were free, but of course those were all gone. Now, it's unclear how you qualify as a preferred POC. Maybe you can just self-identify as one, like Rachel Dolezal or Sean King. They ought to go try to give it a try. The pale of pigmentation are advised to steer clear of the Afro Future Fest anyway. You can refer to John Derbyshire's The Talk to learn why. Needless to say, if some venue offered a discount to white people, it would literally be a federal case. Under a Democrat administration, calling in the FBI wouldn't be enough. The Pentagon might be called in to do an airstrike. I just want you to think about that for a second. Charging different ticket prices based upon a person's skin color. People of color, people of preferentially preferred pigmentation, are now demanding segregation. Segregation in dorm rooms, segregation in classrooms, segregation now at venues. We're going backwards. We're going back-assward. And nobody seems to care, or nobody seems to raise an eyebrow about it. Oh, okay. You want to charge white people more? Yeah, okay. And I think, as John Derbyshire points out in his podcast, The Talk, he's exactly right. If indeed it had been reversed and people of color were being charged more to attend a festival than white people were, oh yeah, it'd be a federal case. Absolutely a federal case. Well, by now you've probably heard of the liquor. There's this new trend going around. I do know how these things get started. They get started on social media. Somebody decides to film some rugrat, some stupid juvenile doing something stupid somewhere, like opening a container of Bluebell ice cream at a store. I think it was in Lufkin, Texas. I forget where it was. Of course it would be in Texas. Bluebell ice cream, of course. And licking the ice cream and then putting it back in the freezer.
Lick it. Oh, you foul. Put it back.
Ugh, it's the lick that left a bad taste in everybody's mouth.
Put it back.
A mystery woman seen happily tasting a half-gallon of Bluebell's tin roof ice cream, then putting it back in a store freezer. The video hit social media on June 28th and quickly went viral. Then tips of who this tin roof taster was started rolling in. According to Lufkin Police, San Antonio PD got the first good lead that the woman was from there and the store was a Walmart. But a store display case matching the one in the video could not be found. The search then moved on to Houston Walmarts. Thanks to another tip, the woman's boyfriend lived here. But again, no luck with the display case. But Bluebell Ice Cream refused to let the trail run cold. And this morning, told all district managers to see if they could ID the display case. And Lufkin was the sweet spot. By 1 p.m., Bluebell says they had the tainted ice cream off the shelf. And by 4, police had surveillance video appearing to show the ice cream caper leaving the store at 11 p.m. on June 28th. Yep, the same day the video hit the web. Police say they think they know who the woman is, which means it's likely only a matter of time before sweet, sweet justice is served.
Well, except the problem is sweet, sweet justice is not going to be served because, turns out, at least according to some reports, and there are conflicting reports, she is a minor. She is under the age of 18, and so she's probably not going to be charged with anything. She's probably going to get some sort of, probation or something, and life will go on. Where are the parents? Where do we get this idea that, and look, I was going to laugh about this story, except I don't want to go, I get mad now when you think about the absurdity, ever since most of you aren't, too many of you aren't old enough to remember the Tylenol scare. The reason we now have like triple packaged Tylenol and everything else where you actually have to take, like you almost have to take some sort of buzzsaw. You have to take, I don't know, like a chainsaw to get into your Tylenol or anything else. It's because somebody contaminated some Tylenol back in, I forget when it was, the 70s or something. And so now we have this super duper packaging. Tamara always laughs that her heaven will be no packaging. Oh, you want some Tylenol? It's just right there. You don't have to tear into it. You don't have to find scissors or a hammer or a jackknife to get into it. I just don't get. Look, we pulled pranks. Didn't you pull pranks? We TP'd houses. We did all sorts of stupid things. But we didn't do anything that was disgusting that I remember. Now, whether higher CO2 levels are more of a cause or an effect of warmer temperature is actually still being debated. But here's what we do know. We do know that higher CO2 levels benefit humanity by benefiting plants. This is one of the reasons the use of fossil fuels is inversely correlated with global poverty. You see, CO2 is greening the planet. In a story over at What's Up With That, in a 2016 paper published by 32 authors from 24 institutions in 8 countries, that analyzed satellite data and concluded that there had been a roughly 14% increase in green vegetation over the past 30 years. The study attributed 70% of this increase to the extra carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The lead author on the study, Zakun Zhu of Beijing University, says this is equivalent to adding a new continent of green vegetation twice the size of the mainland United States. This global greening has affected all the ecosystems from the Arctic tundra to coral reefs to plankton to tropical rainforests. And this is because the plants lose less water in these arid regions because of the process of absorbing carbon dioxide. If the concentration of carbon dioxide is higher, there's less water in the process. So if it turns out that CO2 really does measurably increase temperature, this is going to contribute to the availability of food, which will then free up farmland that is currently buried under ice. Like Greenland used to actually be green. In warmer times, the Scandinavians farmed Greenland. It got its name from the lushness that characterized that vast tract of land before global cooling set in. But the benefits of CO2 are hardly unknown. There have been thousands of experiments conducted over years in which levels of CO2 had been increased over crops or these wild ecosystems and boosted their growth. The owners of commercial greenhouses usually pump CO2 into the air to speed up the growth of plants. You see, CO2 is plant food. More plant life benefits mankind and wildlife alike. The problem is it does not benefit the lefties who want to use climate change for their authoritarian government policies. They just want to use global warming or climate change or whatever the vernacular is today as a pretext to assert control over energy, transportation, and if they grab health care, what's left? They'll control everything. You know, I've got a new, almost 6-month-old granddaughter. Sweetest little thing you'd ever see. Oh, she's gorgeous. But in a world gone mad, with the hashtag #MeToo dumbassery going on, you know, some guy wanting a hug from his 1-year-old granddaughter is probably going to be viewed as some sort of sexual assault. At least that's the case if you go by the advice of feminazi columnist Clementine Ford. This story's in the Daily Mail. An anonymous mother wrote to Ms. Ford through Yahoo, asking how she should respond to her father-in-law offering to blow bubbles for her 1-year-old daughter on the condition that the 1-year-old daughter give him a hug. Do you know how many times I've said to my grandkids, come here and give Grandpa a hug. Give me a hug. I need a hug. She writes in her letter that she said her daughter had been playing with her grandfather, who was blowing bubbles for her. When he stopped, the 1-year-old asked him to keep going. The grandfather responded by telling her, quote, "I'll blow you more bubbles if you give me a hug." This is according to the woman's letter. Now, how many of you grandfathers out there have done exactly the same thing with your grandmothers? Come here, give Grandma a hug, give Granddad a hug. Well, the mother, of course, is a dumbass, or she wouldn't be soliciting advice from a self-described hardline feminist like Ford. But she got exactly what she asked for. Confirmation that the grandfather deserves denunciation as an agent of the patriarchy. So here we see a touching family moment, twisted and made toxic by the dumbassery in 2 different ways. Feminism poisons any interaction between males and females. But beneath that lies another factor, the mainlining of perversion and the sexualization of everything and everyone. Now, in a culture that would produce Desmond is amazing, go study the transgender and the cross-dressing and all that going on. In a culture that produces that kind of stuff, no physical interaction can ever be innocent, not even wanting a hug from a 1-year-old. We are destroying ourselves just bit by bit by giving these people the time of day. Ignore them. Just ignore them. But in the saddest news of the day, an American tragedy has occurred, something truly mournful. There was a fire at a Jim Beam bourbon facility in Kentucky that destroyed more than 45,000 innocent barrels of young whiskey. Those poor, sweet, fresh-faced barrels. They never got to see the world. They never got to experience their life. They never got to live full, happy lives. They were just children. Where is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? According to a Jim Beam spokesperson, the spirits that went up in flames were relatively young whiskeys, meaning they weren't ready for distribution yet, which in turn means that the availability of Jim Beam won't be affected anytime soon, if at all. So the crisis might be averted, sure, but we should still be in mourning over, well, it's always sad to see whiskey go undrunk, right? To never even have the chance to be drunk? I mean, meanwhile, there are entire warehouses full of Burnett's vodka and, well, tequila that God decided not to light on fire. You see, life's just not fair. According to Bloomberg, 40,000, costing potentially hundreds of millions of dollars in damages, all over destroyed whiskey before its time. If it only saved one. If they could have just saved one. And if you think the woman in Lufkin, Texas, the kid, licking the ice cream, well, how about this? A Walmart in Texas, everything's going on in Texas this past weekend. A Walmart in Texas has banned this unidentified woman from their store after she refused to pay full price for a cake that she ate half of before she even made it to the register. I just want you to imagine this. So you're in Walmart. Imagine the website, People of Walmart. So you can imagine what this woman may have looked like. So she's picked up a cake. Now, how do you eat a cake in a Walmart? Well, I guess you have to open the plastic bin that it's in. Do you just eat it with your fingers and just stuff it in your face? Well, on June 25, the Wichita Falls Popo received a call just after 8 p.m. about a woman who had allegedly eaten half a cake as she walked around the store. But when the woman finally got to the register, she refused to pay for the missing portion, essentially asking the cashier to give her half off the original price, despite the other half already being devoured by her. Now, when the popo arrived, the woman was allegedly forced to pay for the whole cake and then was banned from the store after she attempted to get the discount. Now, Walmart didn't respond to People magazine's request for comment about the incident, and as the news station notes, this isn't the only food-related incident to occur at a Walmart over the last few months. Apparently, back in January, another woman from Wichita Falls was banned from the Walmart store after she drank wine from a Pringles can and then spent the several hours riding around the store's parking lot using an electric scooter. I think we need to have, for the Michael Brown Unplugged podcast, rather than doing like the Zoom meetings, I think we just need to gather in a Walmart parking lot at about 9:30, 10 o'clock. Or I don't know, maybe midnight. Just, find a 24/7 Walmart, and we'll just kind of park near the, like halfway in the parking lot, just where we have a good view of everything going on. And maybe, just like, when we go elk hunting or deer hunting or bear hunting, we can just set up blinds and see if we can see the crazy people drinking wine out of a Pringles can and driving around on an electric scooter. I'm in. How about you? Let's get a couple of taxpayer relief shots in. This first one comes to us from Lucerne Valley, California, according to KABC in San Bernardino County.
There was a great ruckus in the back of the house.
His 77-year-old aunt got out of bed and went to investigate.
And when my aunt went back there, she found a man curled up on the floor in the fetal position.
Martin says his aunt ran back into the living room and grabbed a handgun.
The man came and followed her and started coming after her and asked her if, is your husband here? My aunt's feared for her life, and she shot the poor guy.
The intruder, identified as Shay Manigault, was pronounced dead. Martin says that man's family members have now been showing up at the house demanding answers.
She feels like she's a prisoner in her own home, and she's afraid to actually leave her home.
John Manigault is the intruder's father.
Can I ask you, why do you think he was here?
I have no idea.
But now his son is dead, and his 4 grandchildren will all suffer too.
2 boys, 2 girls, and now without a father.
How you doing?
A sheriff's deputy showed up at the house today to help keep the peace.
It's unfortunate, but she was up against the wall. She didn't know what was happening.
The case will be sent to the San Bernardino County District Attorney's Office for review.
She knows she was justified. She knows she was defending her life in her home, but she still feels terrible.
Of course she does. And nobody would blame her for feeling terrible about it. But what fascinates me, and I get that whenever a legitimate taxpayer relief shot occurs, that oftentimes the family members of the deceased thug, or in this case, I don't know what the guy was doing, wonder to themselves, well, why did you have to shoot? They are not in that position where they fear for their own life and they have to take reasonable means to defend themselves. And I love it when people say, well, why didn't they just shoot him in the leg? Why didn't they just, glance him, shoot him in the shoulder or something? Can you imagine you're living alone? Someone's broken into your home. Someone is charging after you. You're supposed to be, how old was this woman, 73 years old? You are supposed to be such a good shot at 12:30 in the morning that, I'm going to give a glancing blow to his shoulder, just enough to knock him down to give me time to call 911. People are nuts. They're absolutely nuts. A suspect was shot during an attempted robbery at a fireworks stand. This comes to us from Houston, Texas.
Not a good day to work at the Northside fireworks stand or try to rob it. A 19-year-old would-be robber nearly killed after he was shot in the face with his own gun. Fox 26's Randy Wallace live tonight from North Harris County with this pretty kind of strange story, Randy.
Yeah, Jonathan, it is. This fireworks stand has been closed for about 5 hours now, and yet we've seen vehicle after vehicle try to pull into the parking lot, which is closed with crime scene tape. Obviously, the investigation out here continues. Sheriff's deputies say robbers view fireworks stands as easy money.
Because they're easy targets. They're out here by themselves, and but it doesn't always go their way. And this is one of those incidents where it didn't go that robber's way.
In this case, that's an understatement. Sheriff's deputies say a 19-year-old man on foot approached this fireworks stand at 14,400 North Freeway. It was shortly before 4. Deputies say no customers were there, just 2 employees.
The workers were back behind the stand. At the time, it was just them there. He produced a handgun described as a revolver and demanded money.
We were driving by and witnessed the robbery. Unfortunately, no one else stopped. I really think people in Houston need to wake up, and if you see something, stop.
Deputies don't know if it was nerves or inexperience. Whatever the reason, the robber, they believe, set his gun down.
We believe he set the gun down on the counter, and during that exchange, the complainant grabbed the gun from him.
The employee fired 1 shot, striking the 19-year-old in the face. Deputies say the employee is taking it hard.
He's very distraught. He was very upset.
We are not from here. We come from a very small town, so to experience this was a lot. It's a lot. Kind of make your stomach turn, make you really think about things.
The latest word on the 19-year-old would-be robber is not good. Hospital officials told sheriff's deputies they don't expect the young man to make it through the night. Reporting live.
And how bizarre. So you're going to rob the place and you walk up and you lay your weapon on the counter? Second thoughts? I don't know. Justified? Yes, still justified in my opinion. I don't think anything's going to happen to this guy who somebody walks up clearly with the intent to rob you, an attempted armed robbery, and he takes things into his own hands. I think it's a justified shooting. This one comes to us from Hillsborough County, Florida.
That's right. Right now, investigators are determining if a stand your ground case might apply here after a man shot and killed a family member who broke into his home. Deputies say the shooter called 911. Investigators say there's a history of domestic violence between the intruder and people living at the home. It's north of Citrus Park off Boy Scout Road. At this time, deputies, they have not arrested anyone.
According to the story, the deputies said that the person in the home, the adult man, shot the suspect who had broken a glass window in the rear of the home to gain entry. Authorities say the resident is related to the suspect and there was or is a history of domestic violence between the suspect and the people living at the home. Again, sounds to me like you've broken and entered into the home. There's a history of domestic violence. It's probably a legitimate taxpayer relief shot. I can't wait for the next Democratic candidate presidential debate because I want to see Joe Biden go up against all of these. Narrow it down. Just get down to 10, and let's get Joe Biden, and let's get Elizabeth Warren and all the others on the stage, and let's have them go at it. Because here's Biden fumbling his way through a lengthy CNN interview. Oh, man.
That what's happening with Harris is anything compared to what would happen with you in this president?
No, but everybody knows who this guy is. Come on, man. Come on, man. I mean, come on.
He says he's gotten NATO to give in more money for their defense because of his tactics.
Oh, come on, man. We should have, look, people know who I am. Look, I'm the guy at the time everybody talks about things that are changed. I'm looking forward to this, man. You walk behind me in a debate. Come here, man. Look, this is not, but I think the American people want a president. And by the way, the idea that NATO, and I know I'm middle-class Joe, I get that part. It's not meant I'm sophisticated. It meant the middle class built this country. Look, my North Star is the middle class. You say, hey, man, look, the other thing, Chris, look, it's center-left. That's where I am. Where it's not is way left. Now, look, here's the first thing about being a VP. Well, Putin is trying to undo our elections. He is undoing elections in Europe. Look what's happening. You think that would have happened on my watch or Barack's watch? You can't answer that, but I promise you it wouldn't have. And it
Hey, man, I can't wait for it. Oh, I cannot wait for it. And finally, I want to talk about, for just a few minutes, if you cannot ignore a hat whose wearer is just quietly minding his own business. You know, maybe you're the problem, and it's not the person that's wearing the hat. You know the story. T.J. Helmstetter headed to Hill Country. It's a Penn Quarter restaurant, D.C., that has been one of his favorite stops. In a text message interview on Friday, he said that he, his partner, and 3 other people found the place packed when they arrived. He wrote, "We had just walked in when I saw the guy sitting by the bar with the MAGA hat. I said, 'Hey, are you from D.C.?' The man said no. Helmstetter said he responded, quote, 'We don't tolerate racism in this city.' Now, the comment, according to Helmstetter, prompted the Make America Great Again cap wearer's companion to get up and jab his fingers into his chest, saying, 'I'm sure I said more things then, don't remember what,' he texted. Did he curse at the woman? You know, I'm from New Jersey. I'm sure I did. I might have said, 'Get your effing hands off of me,' or something like that," he sent in this text interview that he was doing. That's when the manager told Helmstetter, but not the target of his ire, to leave. So now Helmstetter gets on Twitter and said that Hill Country chose, quote, "to protect the Nazis' right, but not mine, to dine at the restaurant." Helmstetter then walked outside and called a Hill Country manager who supported the staff's decision to boot him. Now remember, the guy that's doing the complaining is the one that walked in and walked up to the guy at the bar that was wearing the Make America Great Again hat. Management responded to the kerfuffle in an email to the Washington Post. They wrote to the Post, "Last night, our management team overheard a very loud verbal altercation in our bar area. When 2 of our managers approached the area, they observed one of our guests being hostile towards another group of guests. Our team was simply trying to prevent a physical altercation, as they're trained to do, and asked the guest yelling at the group," the guy that was yelling at the people wearing the hat, "to leave the restaurant immediately. There was nothing more to it from our team's perspective, and the incident was handled appropriately to ensure guest safety." Now, I find it interesting to see the Washington Post active agreement to otherize the Make America Great Again hat wearers by repeating Helmstetter's description. And in this case, they are otherizing the victim. The story continues. Helmstetter texted that he felt compelled to confront the MAGA hat-wearing diner. Let's just pause for a moment. You walk into I don't care if it's your favorite restaurant or a restaurant you've never been into before. You walk in, you see other people already there. They're simply dining. They're simply wearing a hat. Now, we could have an entire podcast on whether it's appropriate to wear a hat inside a restaurant. I was taught differently, but set that aside for a moment. Why does the guy that walked in and started the kerfuffle seem to think that he is the victim? In his texts back and forth to the Post, he texted that he felt compelled to confront the MAGA hat-wearing diner, adding that, quote, "Progressives and any concerned person who thinks that we shouldn't cage brown children in American concentration camps should respond vociferously to these people at every opportunity." But these people often respond vociferously. Helmstetter's Twitter feed and private message inbox then got flooded with comments, much of it questioning his manhood, recommending that he get therapy. Some even suggested he was lucky to come out alive after confronting a Trump supporter in a barbecue joint. So online idiots tweeting stupid stuff are these people, but not the individual who aggressively harassed a customer who was minding his own business. Just imagine what would have happened if Helmstetter thought he caught a glimpse of a smirk. You get the reference? The Covington kid? Now, Ben Smith says what needs to be said. I live downtown, only a few blocks from the White House. Every day I see hundreds of tourists walking through my area. Yes, they can be annoying. They walk on the wrong side. They stop randomly to take pics. They don't know how the metro works. However, they bring a lot of money and much-needed revenue to the city. He continues, a few days ago, I sat down to grab a quick bite before heading to a housewarming party. There was an extremely kind family of 4 sitting near me. They were extremely nice to me when I asked them to hand me something down the counter. 2 boys, 2 parents. When they left the restaurant, they all put back on their MAGA hats and began walking towards the White House. And for some reason, Ben Smith writes, I began to worry about them. There was no reason to, but I worried. I had heard them talking joyfully about being in our nation's capital and what it meant to them. They were excited, but for some reason, when they walked out and put on those MAGA hats, I had a lump in my throat as I feared that someone might say something. But I quickly brushed it away. Now that this Hill Country incident has happened, I would like to make one thing clear to my fellow D.C. residents. Yes, we live here. No, none of us agree on everything, but this isn't our city. This city, Washington, D.C., belongs to everyone in the United States. This is the transient city. It belongs to the nation. So yes, you might disagree with our visitors, but they have just as much of a right to be here as you. Ben Smith, you're making way too much sense. So he says, treat with the same respect that you know that they would treat you. The people visiting are a vital source of both economic stability of the city, as well as add to the uniqueness and the diversity of the city. I don't want to be afraid for these wonderful kind of people, some of whom are doing a once-in-a-lifetime visit to come back from our amazing city feeling like they don't belong in the best symbol of freedom in the world. They shouldn't have to fear being here because of politics. And Ben Smith writes, I am ashamed of my fellow city dwellers. You stop and think about how sad it is that Ben Smith has to write that. How sad this is where we've landed. You can blame Trump all you want for that which he might be blameworthy. And there's plenty there with which to work. Let's be honest. But honestly, the desire to react to a dumb hat and to react to a person wearing a hat lies wholly with the individual that does the harassing, not the person wearing the hat. It's almost like the heckler's veto. Oh, you're wearing the hat. You're the instigator. This is how back-assward things have become. I've been to this restaurant. It's not, for Washington, D.C., it's not bad barbecue. I don't care what kind of hats people wear. People ought to be able to wear any hat they want to. And they ought to be able to do that without fear, or even worse, that some resident of Washington, D.C. meets a nice, I was going to say Midwestern family, but I don't know where they were from. They were just from out of town. They're visiting the nation's capital. If you've never been to Washington, D.C., I can still, even with all of my experience in D.C., I can still remember vividly the first time I ever saw the city for the first time. It was wonderful. Why do we have to politicize, and why do we have to harass people who are simply wearing a hat? I don't care. People used to wear Obama hats all the time. I don't remember them ever getting hassled. What's happened to us? Let's just stop it. Let's just stop it. Thanks for listening to this episode of Michael Brown Unplugged. Real quickly, find us on iTunes, Downcast, find us on the iHeart app, wherever you want to. And as always, go to the website, michaelbrowntoday.com, michaelbrowntoday.com, and on that page, you'll find a place to listen to us on Spreaker and all the social media platforms. Follow me on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.